using substitution. There's
Oh,
two
yeah.
methods. There's
I remember
substitution.
this.
Okay. There's substitution and there's
teacher-
elimination.
So first we have to answer the one on the bottom, and then we use that to find out x, and then plug the x into the top equation.
Yeah, you're very close. We're actually going to do it the opposite way. So
Really?
yeah, so with substitution, the first step, and I'm going to write down the steps, and you guys can write this. I want everyone to write down the problem and then work it out alongside me in your notebooks, because the more you write it, the better you're going to be able to remember it.
We did this a lot last year.
Yeah, we did this a lot.
I remember hating it.
You didn't like it last time?
No.
All right, so step 1 is going to be to isolate one of the variables. Now, out of these two equations, which of these variables is going to be easy for me to isolate?
X.
Yeah, x. Exactly.
How?
The x is alone. It's all by itself already. I mean, it's not isolated, but it doesn't have any sort of coefficient next to it. So it's going to be easy to get that x alone. So in this equation, I'm just going to pop it out real quick. What would I need to do to get x alone?
Divide by 7, then subtract y.
We're not going to divide by 7. That's not going to help us out.
Okay.
What Perla says is correct. We're not going to subtract because remember, the 7 and the y, they go together. They're tied to each other. So I want to get both of them out of the way. And the way to get them out of the way is to subtract. Okay, so we're subtracting 7y. So what I get, I'm left with x by itself. And on the right side, I have negative 11 minus 7y.
But now we need to find out y.
Right.
And y.
Right. But at this point, do I have any questions on how I did that or why I did that? Okay,
No.
Everybody make sure we're writing this down. I can't see half of you. I'm only seeing and hearing Daniel right now. I need you guys to write this down because y'all, this EOC is no joke. EOC is no joke, and we need to be taking this very, very seriously.
Are we really going to have this in the EOC again?
Yes, sir. Everything you learned from last year, every single thing from last year is going to be on the EOC.
Shouldn't it be this up from this year?
No, because you didn't get to take the EOC last year when you were supposed to. So that's why you're taking it. By the end of this year, you'll take, I don't know the exact date, but it's going to be sometime in November probably. So we need to get cracking on the studying. Okay, so step 1, done. We isolated one of the variables. We isolated x. Step 2 is going to be?
Isolate y.
No, sir.
Plug in.
Yeah.
But we don't know what y is. How do we figure out what x is?
How about you watch and pay attention because I'm about to show you, Daniel. Plug in the expression into the other equation. Okay, so I have this expression now, right here. I'm going to plug all of that into the other equation. Now, what variable am I plugging that in for?
X. Oh, I get it now. I'm dumb.
All right, so I'm plugging it in for x. So I have negative 2 times negative 11 minus 7y
I'm really dumb.
minus 5y equals 4.
Uh, 22 plus 5.
What do you guys think is step 3 going to be?
Do the math.
Do the math, solve.
So you get like a 22 plus 14y, and then
Mhm.
minus 5y equals 4.
Good, Daniel. I'm going to slow that down and say it one more time. We're distributing. So I have 22.
22 plus 14y minus 5y equals 4.
Thank you, Daniel. Now what do I do next to solve for y? Subtract. Good. What's 14 minus 5? So I have 22 plus 9y equals 4. Now what do I do?
And you subtract 22.
Subtract 22. Good.
Then you divide that by 9.
What is 4 minus 22?
Now that I'll let you guys handle. I'm not good at quiz maths.
4 minus 22. Good, Tyrone. Negative 18. And finally,
So y equals -2.
yes, I divide by 9 on both sides and I get y equals negative 2.
So I just skipped a whole step.
You sure did, because you're big brain, Daniel.
Nah.
All right, any questions up to this point?
No.
All right, now what can I do? I need to get the other variable, so what do I do?
Plug in y to x.
Good, plug in the solution. Does
So
it
you
matter?
get-
Does it matter which equation I plug it back into?
No.
Nope.
So you
Always
get like negative, it's easier to do the x one. So you get like negative 11 plus 14.
Yeah, so it's easier to plug it into the x equation. Like Daniel said, always pick the easiest one. So I'm doing negative 11 minus 7 times negative 2. So I plugged in negative 2 for y.
The answer is 3 comma -2.
Negative 11 plus 14 does give me 3. And like Daniel said, the answer, the solution,
3 comma -2.
is 3 comma negative 2. Good job. Okay. All right, so there it is. That's my solution using substitution. Do I have any questions? Because in the next one, you're going to do it on your own.
Okay. Thumbs up.
Thumbs up.
Thumbs
All righty, let's go ahead and try the next one on your own. Follow those 5 steps. Let me see if I can actually copy these and put it in the next slide.
up.
I don't know if I can. Oop. Yeah, I don't think I can. But it's the same 5 steps. Oh, I don't know what I did. That's fine. Okay, same 5 steps. I'll start rewriting them and you guys go ahead and solve it as I go on your own. Tyrone, I'll go back in just a second. Hold up. Okay, I'm going back to the previous problem really quick for Tyrone. Tyrone, let me know when I can go back. Okay.
I think I did it wrong.
Oh. Why do you think you did it wrong?
Because I already isolated both of the variables and did all that.
Mhm.
But when I'm trying to plug it into an equation, it does
You got decimals?
I got decimals too.
Hmm.
It's either 6 or like a 4.5 for
Hmm.
y.
Okay, I'm gonna give you guys about 2 more minutes, so go back and check your work and see if it changes. And then in 2 minutes, we'll come back together.
It's like the equation is an unlimited loop. If you try and plug one in, yeah, you need the other one, and then it keeps on happening over and over again. There's no answer to it.
Okay. Is anyone else having issues like Daniel? He said that, Daniel, can you explain what you said again? We can't hear you. Go a little closer to your mic.
When I tried to plug the equations in,
Mm-hmm.
it kept on going in an unlimited loop. When I tried to plug x into the 3x thing, it asked me for y, and then y asked me for x.
Okay, so what I think is happening is that you might be plugging it into the wrong equation. So let's go back. Let's do this one together.
It's kind of the same thing with the first one too.
Let's see what happens. Okay. So in the first step, I need to isolate one of the variables, right? So you guys tell me which of these is going to be easy for me to isolate.
Y.
Yeah. So you can either isolate the y, so you can isolate this y, or you can isolate the x. Either one is easy because they're already alone. So since Daniel said y first, I'll go ahead and isolate y. So let me pop this equation out. And when I try to get y by itself, what do I have to do to both sides?
Subtract 7.
Subtract 7 from both sides. So y by itself would be what?
3x plus 7.
3x
minus 10.
minus 7.
7.
Minus 7, yeah. Okay. So there's my solution. That's step 1. Now I'm plugging the expression, and here's the key word, plug the expression into the other equation. So I'm not plugging it into the bottom equation, I'm plugging it into the top equation. And which variable am I plugging it in for?
Y?
Y, not x, y. Why am I plugging it in for y?
Cause it's y.
Yeah, because the expression is equal to y. It's already y. So that's why I'm plugging it in for y.
Yeah, but wouldn't you still need the x to figure that out?
You'll
Because x.
figure out the x once you plug it in. Once you plug this expression into the top equation, we'll figure out x.
I'm tired. I do not understand.
Okay, Daniel, I'm going to explain it to you, but you have to watch and and understand. Okay? Because I'm here to explain. The whole point is to explain.
Okay.
Okay. In order to solve an equation, there can only be one variable. But how many variables do I have right now? I have two. I have x's and y's. So the reason I'm going to plug this into the top equation, watch what happens. I'm going to plug it in for y. Okay, I plugged it in for y on the top equation. How many variables do I have in this equation? How many different variables? How many different letters?
Oh.
Just one. I only have x. I don't have any more y's. I only have x's. So this equation I can solve and get an answer, get a number.
How?
Okay, so the reason I'm plugging the y in is so that I can get a number as my answer. Because if you plug this back into the same equation it came from, you're just going to get the same equation. You're not going to get an answer. Because watch what happens. If I plug this back into the bottom equation, here's what Daniel was doing. And let's see why this won't get you an answer. So I plugged it into the bottom equation. And what happens, guys?
It's an endless loop.
It's an endless loop because this cancels out. So you have 3x equals 3x. The 3's cancel out when you divide. So you just end up with x equals x, which doesn't give you anything. That doesn't give me an answer. Okay, so that's why you have to plug it in, not into the same equation, but you have to plug it into the other equation. Once
I did that. I guess I plugged it into the wrong side or something.
Yeah, maybe you plugged it in for the wrong value. I don't know. But now that we've plugged it into the top equation, we can solve. Yeah, what Perla's saying. When you plug it into the same equation it came from, you're just saying that the equation is equal to itself, which doesn't tell me anything new. I already knew that. Okay? So it loops. All right, so here we go. So I'm solving, I'm distributing. I got 6x minus 14 equals x plus 6. What do I do to both sides?
Minus 4 plus 14.
First, I want to get my variables all to the same place. Subtract.
Oh, what?
Subtract x from both sides. So this is 5x minus 14 equals 6. Now I can add 14 to both sides.
And now, looks like
So what do I get? 5x equals
20, which
20.
means x equals 4,
Good.
which means y equals.
Okay,
Which means y is 5.
And how did you get that?
Because 3 times x is 14. No, 12. 12 minus 7 is 5.
We plugged it back in. 12 equals y plus 7. Subtract 7 on both sides. You get y equals 5. So what's my final answer?
4, 5.
4, 5.
45.
4 comma 5. All right. Questions, comments, concerns with substitution?
Yes, I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
How do you know which side to plug the equation in?
Okay, good. So
you can tell where top and bottom, but you don't really know which side to plug the equation into.
So
it
the way you figure that out is based on which variable you isolated. Since I isolated y, I have to plug it in for y. Okay, let's pretend, I'm going to erase everything. You guys don't have to copy down what I'm about to write, but let's pretend we went the other way. Let's pretend instead of solving for y, we decided to solve for x.
Would it still give the same thing?
Yeah, you would still get the same answer. But if I was solving for x, I would subtract 6 from both sides, yada, yada, yada. I would get x equals 2y minus 6. And since I isolated x is the value that I got alone, I'm going to be plugging this into top or bottom. Which one, top or bottom?
Bottom.
Bottom. And I'm plugging it in for x.
So,
Since I solved for x, I'm plugging it in for x.
It would give the same thing because it would be like 6y minus 8.
Yeah, you would get the same answer no matter which way you do it. Okay.
But does it depend? But does it if you plug it into the top after you get this equation, would it affect it?
You would get
Because you could plug it in on the bottom, and then could you plug it in on the bottom and then plug it in on the top and still get the correct answer?
You have to plug it in into the bottom, because if you plugged it into the top, you would end up in your infinite loop. Because you'd be plugging it back into where it came from.
Yeah, I guess that's where I got it wrong.
Tyrone, what was your question? How do you know which goes n? Bro, what is this? Is this x? Is it going to be x comma y or y comma x? So we had x equals 4 and x equals 5, right?
Yes.
So coordinate points are always x comma y. So that's why the final answer was 4 comma 5. Okay. Negative 5. Oh, y. Yeah. All right. Any other questions on substitution?
Don't think so.
Okay.
That was my main problem.
Good. I'm glad I'm really glad that we figured that out, because that can definitely be confusing. So it's good to just like put that in order. All right. So now we can do elimination. Elimination method.
Ooh, I like elimination.
I like elimination too. I think it's a little easier.
It is way easier.
So for elimination, I've been getting a lot of participation from Perla, Tyrone, and Daniel. So for this problem, I only want to hear from Eric, Jalen, Alejandro, Emily, and Janelle's. Everyone else.
Daniel.
I've got 9 people in this class, and only 3 people have been participating.
What about Daniel?
Daniel, you've been doing so good that I want you to be quiet. So I'm going to mute you for now. Okay, so I only want to hear from Eric, Jalen, Alejandro, Emily, or Janelle's. So with elimination, what I need to end up, the key to elimination is to get opposites. We want to get opposites. So what that means is you need to look at the x values and then look at the y values and think to yourself, can I make one of those pairs opposite to each other? So in this case, I notice that I have a negative 3y and a negative 3y on both of them. So I know that since this is negative 3 and this is also negative 3, it's going to be easy for me to make one of those the opposite, because what I want is negative 3 and positive 3. I want one of them to be negative and the other one to be positive. So if I wanted to make one of them negative or positive, I mean, let's say I could choose whichever one I want, but I'm gonna decide, let's say I want the bottom one to be a positive 3y. Well, in order to turn that into a positive, I need to multiply it by -1. But that means I need to multiply everything by -1. So what I'm gonna do is multiply this whole entire thing by -1. So I get -4x plus 3y equals positive 5, because I'm multiplying everything. Okay, all I did was multiply this by -1. But the top equation, I'm going to keep it exactly the same, because now that I've changed the 3 into a positive, I can keep the top one exactly the way I had it. So that was step 1. Step 1 is create opposite coefficients by multiplying. Okay. Now, next step, now that I've created my opposite coefficients, is I'm going to add the two equations. Yeah, so why am I adding? Janelli says in the chat that it's going to cross the y's out, and that's exactly why we're going to add. Because now I have -3y plus 3y, which is going to cancel out. But now I need to add everything else. So what do I get when I add all the way across? Daniel, I told you not to answer, and you're disobeying my orders. That makes me very disappointed, and if you do it again, I'm kicking you out. Okay, so Janelli's, yes, when you add everything else, I have 6 plus -4, so that's going to be 2x. My y's got canceled out, so now I have 15 plus 5, which is 20. So I have 2x equals 20. Step 3 is to solve. So in order to solve for x, you have to divide by 2. And you end up with x equals 10. Okay, Janelli's no answering this one. Everybody else, though, what should I do now? Everybody, so I mean Eric, Jalen, Alejandro, Emily, what should I do in the next step? Say it publicly, not privately. If you put it in the chat. Good, Eric, plug it in. Does it matter which equation? Does it matter which one I plug it into? No, it does not. So I'm going to plug it into one of the original equations. So I could pick the top one, the bottom one, any of them. So let's see. Alejandro, which one should I do? The top equation or the bottom equation? Which of the two equations should I plug it into?
Top.
Top? Okay. So my top equation is 6x minus 3y, but I'm going to plug in a 10 for x. And finally, I can solve that equation and get something for y. So 6 times 10?
60.
60. Now what can I do to both sides?
Make a subtract. You could yeah, subtract the 60 and just move it to the other side.
Beautiful. And what do I get when I do that? 15 minus 60.
-45.
Good, -45. And finally, what can I do? Emily?
divide, which is y equals 15.
Awesome. Thank you, Alejandro. Good to know you're somewhere out there listening. All right, and now my final answer. My final solution. This goes for anybody. Good, Emily. 10 comma 15. I appreciate my cheerleaders in the chat. So Tyrone, you were cheering everybody on. I appreciate that. Thank you. All right. Any questions on the elimination method? Okay, perfect. So now the next one, you guys are going to do it on your own. Let me check. I think there's, yeah. You guys are going to do this one on your own. Try it out. And we'll talk about the answer. And then at that point, after this problem, anyone can participate again because everybody has now officially participated at least once. I'm going to write the steps out just like I did before. If you get an answer, you can type it in the chat for me. Okay, about one more minute. Okay, got a couple answers in the chat. You should be getting whole numbers. So if you're getting fractions, there might be something going on with your negatives and your positives. Okay. Daniel sent it publicly. All right. So let's go ahead and go through this. Okay. So I need to create opposites, but at the moment, do I have any opposites? No. So I know that I'm going to have to multiply one or the other or both. In this case, am I going to have to multiply the top equation, the bottom equation, or both equations?
The top.
Okay, so the top. What can I multiply the top by?
A fraction, -3/2.
Ooh, so you want to multiply it by a fraction. I would say stay away from fractions because fractions, even if you get the right, you'll get the same answer, you'll get the right answer, but you'll be doing extra work. So instead of just multiplying one of them, Janelle's and Tyrone are both saying, let's multiply both of them. And let's see why that might be a smarter idea or just a better idea for us to do it easily. So the top one, yeah, the top one you can multiply by 3.
What? Okay, that does not make sense.
What about the bottom one? Janelle says times -2. Let's see why this is going to help us out.
Yeah,
So,
3/2. Or -2. I mean,
but
no.
you, okay, yeah, no, it's the same thing. That's what I was saying. All right, so the top one times 3, everything times 3 on the top, what do you get? Yeah, you have to flip the bottom one to make it negative. That's true. Okay, so for the top one, I get what?
What X is? Wait, why am I not on mute?
Who can tell me what I get on the top when I multiply everything by 3? Good, 6x plus 18y equals 48. Good, thank you, Eric and Janelle's. For the bottom one, why am I multiplying the bottom one times -2 and not +2? To cancel it out, exactly. All right, so I have -6x. Keep going, what? Plus 10y, good Janelle's, equals +36. Good, step 1 is done. Step 2, now I can add the equations together. And when you add those equations together, the 6's cancel out. And what do I get for the rest of it? (28y equals 48), exactly. And now I divide to solve for y.
Miss,
Yes.
it's not 48, it's 84.
I'm sorry, you're right. That's my dyslexia coming through. There we go. All right. 84 divided by 28 is, as Daniel says, is 3. Step 4, now it's the easy steps. This is fast and easy. We plug it back in and solve. Which equation would you guys like me to plug it into? The top one or the bottom one? Top? Sounds good to me. So I have 2x plus 6 times 3 equals 16. Okay, so that's 2x plus 18 equals 16. Subtract 18. That gives me what? Good, -2. Divide by 2 and I get x equals -1. Very good. Solution? -1, 3. Good. Whew. Okay. Questions, comments, concerns? Good job, Perla. Perla, to answer your question that I saw a little while ago about the grades, Khan Academy is due on Thursday at midnight, but grades are due Thursday at noon. So your Khan Academy is not going to count towards this marking period. Okay, so the grades you have right now, that's pretty much what it is. There's not going to be anything else. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. It is what it is. All right. Questions, comments, concerns on... Okay, Perla, I will reconsider. Okay, fine. Perla, you win. If you guys do it by tonight at midnight, you have to do it by tonight though, at midnight, then I'll put it into the grade book. If you wait till tomorrow, it's not going in. Nope, if you wait till tomorrow, nobody's goes in. Everyone has to finish by tonight at midnight. All right, I just have a few more questions left. Maybe you'll have time at the end of this period if we finish early. Okay. So the last thing is, well, no, this is the second to last thing. So remember at the very beginning how we were talking about there can be one solution, infinite solutions, and no solutions, right? Emily's telling y'all to calm down. So calm down. She has spoken. All right, so we can have one solution, no solutions, infinite solutions. Now, you can look at a graph and see it pretty easily, but we also need to know how to do it mathematically. So what I'm going to do is we're going to solve this system, and depending on our answer, we're going to decide if there's one solution, no solutions, or infinite solutions. So based on the actual numbers in this system, I can decide which strategy is going to be better for me. So based on this, should I use elimination or substitution? Tyrone says substitution, and that's correct, but why? Why would I prefer substitution? Because there's no equal sign? Well, there is an equal sign, but it's in a specific place. Right. So in other words, what is already done for you? What's already done for you? The x is already what? Yeah, they already solved the equation for x. The x is already isolated. So I can skip right ahead to step 2. So I can plug this into the bottom equation. Now, Daniel, this question's for you. When I plug that expression in, should I be plugging it in for the x or plugging it in for the y?
Y.
Think again.
X.
Yeah, because Daniel, look, the x is the variable that is solved for. Okay, 4y minus 4 equals x. So I need to plug it in for x. I know that's the confusing part, Daniel, but we got to figure that out and remember it. So I'm plugging it in. I have 4y minus 4 minus 8y equals negative 24. We're solving for y. So I want everyone to take, I know you guys are moving classrooms, so I'm giving you guys a minute. So I'm going to wait for them to settle into their new place, and everybody else go ahead and solve this equation for y. Go ahead and solve for y. Send me your answer once you have it. So I want to see an answer from Jalen, Eric, Daniel, Emily, and Alejandro.
Okay, miss, we're here.
Okay, perfect. So we're at step 3 right now. We're solving for y. All right, so let's follow along. Let's go ahead and solve it. What should I do first? What should I do first if I'm solving for y? Anyone? Thank you, Eric and Emily. Okay, we're going to distribute. So I have 8y minus 8 minus 8y equals negative 24. Okay, after we distribute, what can I do now?
Add
What am I adding?
8y.
Okay, what? Okay, Daniel said it correctly. We're going to add like terms, combine like terms. And what happens when I combine like
got it.
terms? What do I get?
There's no
16 more. Wait, 0.
0. There's
0.
no y.
0. So I get 0, and then I have negative minus 8 equals negative 24. Well, what's 0 minus 8?
Negative 8.
So I get negative 8 equals negative 24. And what's wrong with that
So
statement?
I was right.
What's wrong with that statement?
First of all, there's no variable or whatever it's
Okay.
called.
There's no
And
variable.
second of all, they don't equal each other.
They don't equal each
Unless
other.
you
There's no solution.
Right. Since these numbers don't equal each other, this would be no solution.
Wrong.
So I was right. D.
So it's D. Now, this is what happens when you have no solution. What would it look like if you had infinite solutions?
It would be 0, 0. Or they would be the same.
They would be the same, exactly. So for example, 0 equals 0, or negative 8 equals
It would
negative 8,
It would
or
be the
negative
center of the world.
4 equals
Right.
negative 24. Anything like that, all of those would be infinite solutions. All right, so questions on what makes something no solution or what makes something infinite solution?
No.
Oh, no.
Okay, so the last thing to look at, this is the last topic of the day, is equivalent systems. So again, equivalent systems, what does the word equivalent mean?
Equal.
Equal, right?
Equal.
So equivalent
This one
systems.
is easy. Just multiply the top one by 2.
Okay, yeah, so you stole my answer, but remember, equivalent systems have the same answer, or in other words, the same solution. Okay? If they have the same solution,
They have
one
to
way,
have like the same factors or multiple.
yeah, that means that one of the equations was multiplied by the same factor all the way across. So like Daniel was saying, this top equation was multiplied all the way across times 2. So there's 2 things you could do. You could solve each equation, each system, and get an answer, and then see if the answers match. But the easy way is to see if there's any patterns. Okay? So anytime you see a pattern like this one, where the whole thing got multiplied by the same factor, that would be an equivalent system. All right, so now that's one way. What about here? Are these 2 systems equivalent? State why or why not. So take a moment, look for patterns.
Yeah.
The bottom is equivalent, but I'm not sure.
Bottom ones is the equivalent. I don't think the top one is.
So how is the bottom one equivalent?
Multiply the first one by 2.
This is times 2. That's
thing.
correct.
Again,
And then what about the top one?
You can't really multiply that by anything that will make it equal.
You add.
Interesting, interesting. What do you think? Adding. So let's take a look.
Like, you could add, but wouldn't you have to add the same number for all of them? So if you
No,
had,
so adding is when you take the whole system, the first system, and you add it together. So for example, here, if I added that whole system,
you get the same bottom, but you wouldn't get the same top.
yeah, but watch what happens. I have,
Because, my bad.
watch what happens. I have 3x plus x, that's 4x. I have y plus negative 4y. So what do I get there?
3y.
Negative 3y. And then I have 8 plus negative 6. What do I get there?
Oh my god.
What do you get there?
2.
2. So notice how that's the equation I have.
Oh my god.
You see that?
Yeah.
Okay. So adding and subtracting also give you equivalent systems. This
Okay.
is the sum of system 1. So that's another pattern you always have to check for. Now, if you're not entirely sure, what could you always do just to make sure if they're equivalent?
Math.
You could do the math and solve each system independently and see if you get the same answer. So in this last, okay, I want to do that last problem still, but I could solve each one individually and see if I get the same answer. So do you think, would it be helpful for you guys to do that? Would you like me to solve these just to have one
Yes.
more example of solving? Okay, that's what I thought. Okay, so I already think, because I'm using the patterns, I do think they are equivalent. But now I'm going to use math to double check. So I'm going to start by solving system A, and I'm going to move fast, guys, because I just want to show you this so we can move on to the next one. So I'm just going to do this fast. But if I want to solve system A, I'm going to want to multiply the bottom by what number?
2.
2.
Wait.
Negative 3, says Perla. That's correct. We're going to multiply the bottom equation
Oh, because you flipped it. My bad.
by
That
negative
doesn't-
3.
Sense.
It sure does, because now I have this. The top one stays the same. The bottom one, I get negative 3x plus
are you doing
12y.
elimination?
Oh yeah, we're doing elimination. You could do substitution as well, but I figured we might as well do elimination. All right, now the x's cancel, and then I get 13y. What's 18 plus 8? Good, 26. So when I divide by 13 on both sides, I get y equals 2.
2.
Okay, I'm gonna plug that back into the bottom equation, to the top equation, because that's a little bit easier. That's 3x plus 2 equals 8. Subtracting 2, I get 3x equals 6. Dividing by 2, I get x equals 2. So I have 2 comma 2. Now I'm going to solve the equation B, system B. For system B, I'm going to keep the top one the same. And what should I multiply the bottom one by? Perla already said it, by negative 2. Good.
Okay.
All right, so that gives me negative 4x plus 16y equals positive 24. Okay, now I add. Negative 3 plus 16 gives me 13. Good, so I got 13y, and then 24 plus 2 is 26. Divide by 13, divide by 13, and sure enough,
It's the same.
it's the same. And if I plugged it back in, which I'll do really quickly, I'll plug it into the bottom equation. I have 2x minus 16 equals negative 12, which is 2x equals positive 4, x equals 2. I get 2 comma 2 again. All right, so the long way is to solve both of them and see if you get the same answer. The short way is to pick up on the patterns that you might have. So we already knew that they were going to be equivalent because we noticed that the bottom one was multiplying the bottom one by 2, and the top one was the sum. So don't forget that you can also have the sum. Yes, if it's a multiple or a simplified version, then it's equal, yes. All right. I know I said this was the last thing, but I forgot that there's one last one, but this is easy because this is just going to be adding, we already know how to do the equations, but now we have inequalities. So the last thing we just need to remind ourselves of, which we did last week a little bit, is what each symbol means.
Greater than or less. Wait. I remember.
Okay, the first column. So less than or equal to, and then less than. Where am I shading, above or below?
Above.
For less than.
Yeah.
Below. So this is below, the other one is
Above.
above. What type of line? Is this going to be a solid or dotted?
Solid.
Good.
Solid.
Solid and dotted.
Solid.
Okay. Now, here I have 2 lines. So the first thing I need to identify is which line is which. So let's take a look first at this one right here.
Solid.
It's solid, and what's the y-intercept of that one?
2.
2. The y-intercept is 2. So look at all of the options. Which of those equations is this one going to be?
A.
A, B, C, or D.
They all look the same.
They are the same. What's the only difference between all the answer choices?
Symbol.
Symbol is the only difference. So since the symbol is the only difference, all I need to identify is which one has the correct symbol.
It's A.
That means it's A.
And why is it A? You're correct. Why is it A?
Because it has the symbol.
Which symbol was I looking for?
The one that's above and solid.
Greater than or equal to. Greater than or equal to.
And how did you know that it's this equation that matches?
It has a 2 at the end, which is the y-intercept.
Perfectly
in,
said.
Function form.
Perfectly
But they all
said.
have +2.
Well, they all
But-
have +2, but the other equation,
They have different
They have
signs.
the wrong symbol.
yeah. And then this equation, just to double check, does it match this line?
Yes.
Yes, yes, yes.
Good, because the y-intercept
It's
is
2.
-3,
Oh, wait.
which matches this -3 over here. Okay, so that means that this one is correct. A is correct.
Yay.
Okay, so for this type of question, you really only have to look at the y-intercept. Did I have to calculate slope?
No.
Didn't have to calculate slope. I just looked at the y-intercept and the symbol and found the one that matches. Okay. All right, one last question and then we're done. So now it's the opposite. Instead of finding the right equation, now I have to find the right graph. So I'm going to zoom in for you guys because I know it's a little bit small. Take a moment. Take a moment. Look through all the answer choices and then send me your answer in the chat when you have one. Okay, a couple more seconds. Send me your answer if you have it.
Wow, incredible.
All right. So let's take a look. Remember, it's a game of match. And yes, so Tyrone just said it in private, but I'll say it out loud. Every single answer choice is the same graph. It's just that the placement of the shaded region is different. So we're trying to match which one has the correct placement of the shading.
B.
So in order to do that, you need to identify which line is which. So I'm going to do that using the y-intercepts. In my top equation or my top inequality, I'm looking for something that has a y-intercept of what?
1.
1. So I know it's going to be in graph A, it's this one. Graph B, it's this one. C is this one. D is this one. And then I look at my symbol. My symbol tells me that it needs to be shaded where?
Wait. Above.
Above. So which answer choices can I eliminate based on that?
C. And A.
A is still shading above.
Wait. C and D.
C and D, good. Because both of us shade below that line. Okay, then I look at the other line, which is, what's the y-intercept of that one?
-3.
-3. So here's -3 and here's -3. So I know it's this line. And then that one has to shade where?
Up. Above as well.
Above, exactly. So which of the two answer choices shades above the blue line?
B.
B,
I
exactly.
was right. Yay.
Okay, B is the only one where it was shading above both lines. Both
Hello.
lines had to be above. All right, any questions on this one? I think most people got the correct answer.
Nope. You just have to look at the symbols and the y-intercept.
Exactly. Symbols and y-intercept, that's all you need. All right, and then finally, good, we have 5 more minutes. This one's easy. If a question asks you whether a given point is a solution, does anyone remember what you have to do?
Just wanted to take a look.
Find out the y and the x and then multiply it by certain numbers until you get the point that you need.
What?
There's an easier way, and Perla, can you say it publicly?
Don't.
You're on the right track, Daniel, but there's an easier
Oh,
way.
you have to plug it in.
We're just gonna plug it in. So I have
Uh,
A and B, it's equation A, or inequality A and inequality B. I'm gonna plug it into both, and if it's a solution, what has to happen? If it is a solution, what has to happen?
does it show the coordinates?
Not quite.
No. It. Wait, what was the question again?
Okay, let's just do it. So I'm gonna plug in X and I'm gonna plug in Y, and then we'll see what happens. So in the top equation, equation A, I would plug in 10 for X, -2 for Y. And then we're gonna solve, and what are we looking for?
The
What do we want to happen? An equation that makes sense, exactly. An inequality that makes sense. So what's net? So let's go ahead and do this. We're multiplying 6 times -2. What's that? 12. Good. So I have 10 minus 12. Plus 12. I'm sorry. Plus 12. Okay. 10 plus 12 gives me
22.
So right now I have 22 is greater than 5. Is that a true statement?
Yes.
Yes. Now I do it with
Mm.
equation B. I'm going to plug in 10 for X, -2 for Y, and see if I get something that makes sense. 10 times 7?
70.
2 times -2?
-4.
70 minus 4?
66.
Is 66 greater than or equal to 4?
Yes.
So is this a solution?
Yes.
Yes. Just plug it in. That's all you have to do. Plug it in and see if you get an answer that makes sense. All right, so we've reviewed a lot of stuff today, guys. So if there's any remaining questions, you gotta let me know now or forever hold your peace.
I think I'm done.
Okay. All right, so as a reminder, the homework, if you want it to count for your grade, is due tonight at midnight. If you want it to count for your grade, it's due tonight at midnight. So make sure you get it done by midnight. And that's all, guys. All right, have a good rest of your day. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Remember, tomorrow, bring your A game. Full participation, cameras on. All right,
Okay.
Bye, Miss Lopez.
bye, guys.